Hello, this is Paola Rodriguez, and on the Miracle Hour on this episode with an absolute beautiful woman who I had the chance to meet a couple of years ago in Orlando, Florida. And I am so delighted to have her here on the Miracle Hour for this episode. And I can't wait to see all the wisdom that she will be sharing with us today. So please join me in giving a really warm welcome to my dear Allison Walsh. Thank you so much for being here. You are you are one of these women that you really admire, that I personally admire, and I follow you on social media. And every time you post this nuggets, I'm like, yes, 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 yes. You're one of those that it's like this uh daily dose of empowerment in a very subtle, beautiful way. So thank you for what you do. And please tell them what you're up to, what you're creating, and what it is that you do in the world currently.
Oh, well, thank you so much. And I just appreciate your energy and the joy that radiates from you and all that you do too. And thank you for having me today. I've been looking forward to our conversation. And, I think that for me, I've had a beautiful career, but it's always been very mission driven, passion focused. And I'm excited to share all of that with your audience today.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Thank you. Because you are one of these women who is not just doing one thing, like you have been able to combine several things. Now, tell us about that because
Yep.
people tell me all the time, yeah, but I like this and I like this other thing and I like to sing and I like accessories how can I do all of it? Or how can I just focus on one and then forget about the rest? So tell us a little bit about that. How does that happen?
Yeah, well, I can totally resonate with feeling kind of scattered. And there was definitely a period of in my life where I'm like, at some point this all needs to click and there needs to be a through line and it needs to make sense. But I do very much identify with the identity of being multi-passionate. I love to be involved in a lot of different things. And part of that comes from my desire to learn and grow and evolve. And so I allow my curiosity to take me to places that I know will at some point make sense, but complement what it is that I'm doing. And that will unlock a lot of other opportunities. So just to kind of rewind the tape, I got involved in the behavioral healthcare industry when I was 18 years old, as a direct result of going through a pretty significant struggle with an eating disorder while I was in high school. And I realized that there were not a lot of organizations out there dedicated to running alongside individuals to help them feel like they weren't alone. And so when I was 18, I walked onto my college campus, realized resources weren't available to the degree and extent that I thought they should be for individuals in recovery. And so I started a nonprofit. And that was my entry point into behavioral health care, kind of just from a passion that I had. And I leaned into that. And as a result, got very involved, not only on my college campus, but then that became the nonprofit, right? It was statewide. Then I had opportunities nationally to do things because I was a young advocate who liked to use her voice and wanted to create change and make a difference in this world. So that opened a lot of doors for me. And I had the chance to really contribute to a lot of meaningful organizations that were doing great work in this space. And during that time, I thought initially that I wanted to be an attorney that would, hold insurance companies accountable for people being able to access care. So I went to law school, quickly realized that I did not want to be an attorney, but I'm a very stubborn human and I finished anyways. But during that time, had the chance to lean into some other opportunities and things that were really closely on the horizon. So I had been reached out to really get involved more so on the treatment side. And so I got started in sales and business development, working on behalf of programs. So that was like my entry point into that like professional selling atmosphere, which I loved. But my entrepreneurial spirit had very much been tapped into as well. So during that period of time where I was using my voice, really like the 18 to 25-year range, I also had the chance to become Miss Florida. And I served the state for an entire year. I traveled all over the country. I spoke. Again, my platform was eating disorder prevention and awareness, and just had the most incredible experiences. But post that year, I started coaching. That was my first time, like really helping other people do what it was that I had done. And so fast forward to law school and kind of knowing that that wasn't my path, merged with another coach in the area, and we opened a full service studio. And talk about like the coolest experience. We scaled so fast. Our client list was so long. We were instantly profitable, hit six figures pretty much in 6 months. Like it was like go. So we were cranking, but it was just like such a cool example of like when you find something you're good at that you love and you lean in and you go for it, like chances are something really cool is going to come out of it. And that's what happened. And so we had this business booming on this side. I got involved with a startup on the healthcare side. Again, just I'm a bleeding heart and I love to help people. And so I was tapped to be a part of a behavioral healthcare startup that was opening not too far from where I lived. But I was the second person that was brought in to start and scale that company. Was there for 9.5 years. We grew it to 1,000 employees, unicorn status, just a beautiful company that has helped at this point over 50,000 people change their lives in treatment. And it was just a wonderful opportunity for me to learn how to be a leader. I learned a lot of things the hard way. I learned leading through COVID, how that changes you as a person and how you have to show up differently in times of high stress and uncertainty. So that was just, again, like one of these opportunities that I can't even believe that I was so blessed to have, but comes down to the work ethic, comes down to the drive, comes down to my willingness to like learn and put myself outside of my comfort zone. On the coaching side, have continued to iterate and evolve there. But I mean, in totality, I've been a coach and consultant for over 15 years at this point, and primarily focus on helping women start and scale their businesses and their brands so that they can find true alignment and purpose in whatever it is that they do, so that they can feel that fulfillment that is so critically important to living a full life in all of the best ways possible.
Wow, wow, wow. It's so powerful how things just come into alignment. It's not like you just sat there and said, okay, what am I gonna do? And I'm waiting for that epiphany of like, okay, maybe this coach is saying that I should be doing this, or this is the trend. What I'm hearing from what you're sharing is that you really, and like you very well said, it was your passion. It was finding the need out there. The market is needing this, or people are needing this, people are needing treatment, people are needing, and it came from your own need, it came from your own pain, from your own experience, and then you
Exactly.
followed it. And this I love, because many times people are or women are waiting for that one idea, brilliant idea or inspiration, and what happens is that they fall off the wagon like midway. They're like, maybe this is not it. Now let's talk about, because what I'm hearing also is resilience, is you're stubborn, you just go for it, you finish what you start. But there must have been moments when you felt like, maybe I get to pivot here. Maybe this is not it. Maybe like how could you tell the difference between there's just this hard moment in entrepreneurship and we just get to push through and pivot a little bit? And when is it when you say, you know what, this is not it, and I just get to leave it on the side and it doesn't mean I'm giving up?
Yeah, it's such a good question because I think we can get stuck in an identity, especially if you've invested a lot of time, energy, and effort. And I can totally like resonate and relate, right? My first coaching business, my ideal client is very different than what it is today, right? And even as that brand has evolved and as we, really leaned into the whole she believes she could concept and launched the podcast and I wrote the book, and like the evolution there is significant. And for me, it was very fluid. However, I also want to give anybody listening or watching permission to like do a sharp pivot too, right? Like that's totally okay. If there's something else that's calling you to do, like you're being called to do it, you're being called to lean in, there's something that happens. A lot of times where I see pivots happen is there was a ground zero or a breaking point or something happened in somebody's life that was an aha moment where now their passion lies someplace else. And so giving yourself permission to evolve into the person you're intended to be is incredibly important because yes, it can be scary. And yes, you can feel stuck, but you're depriving the world of this new value that you can add if you hold on too tight to the version you were yesterday. Honor her, right? Celebrate her, like learn from her, right? Write the list, the wins, the lessons, the incredible experiences, but also be okay with saying, she got me to who I am today. And this is now my springboard. And I've had multiple moments, happy to share, of like, in
Yes,
addition,
please.
especially in the last few years, right? So I mentioned leading through COVID. That was one of those defining times where it was like, head down, do the work, save the team, make sure the company can keep its doors open, do all the things, right? But I also recognized within myself about a full year into it that I was struggling, right? So I was getting burnt out. I was exhausted. Like I would wake up and want to go right back to bed again. I didn't have the joy for what it was that I was doing. I felt like I was on autopilot and I was running so hard. And I think what was so difficult in that time was that everything else around me from the outside looking in looked like it was the best it had ever been, right? Like great family. We bought a new house. Like we were doing all the things that we always like, on the list of things you want to do and achieve. Like it was happening, winning awards, all this stuff. But I was so empty on the inside. And I was really having a hard time checking in with myself and knowing what I needed to do next. And I recently just wrote an article about this, but it was honestly due to my podcast. I had a guest that came on and she gave me a piece of advice at the end of my show about somebody I needed to connect with. And I ask everybody at the end of my every episode, like, who should I follow? Who should we be inspired by? All this. And she made a recommendation for somebody. And I leaned in and I was like, this sounds amazing. And it was a woman by the name of Nick Pigeon. She's like really like one of the gurus in the world of positive psychology. She's just an incredible human. She's like, you really should read her book and follow what she's doing. Read the book. I was like, this is amazing. And positive psychology for me was such like a refreshing concept, because if you think about it, for 20 years, I've run alongside people in their darkest times in the behavioral health space. Nobody calls you on their best days when you're talking about treatment. They just don't. And so that was hard. Leading a team through a pandemic was hard, right? It was heavy, right? We were all experiencing something we had never experienced in our lifetime. But positive psychology is the science of happiness, well-being, and success. And that to me was like a breath of fresh air, where it's like, let's focus on what's right and leaning into it, not in a toxic positivity type of way, but in like the most holistic, like view and perspective. And I went through this like renewal of myself and my soul during that process. And so I reached out to Nick. I ended up going through her Positive Psychology Coach Academy to get certified. During that process, I was not only looking for something to help heal me, but I was very concerned about retention on my team, right? I mean, they all lived through it too. I had amazing team members that I did not want to lose. And so I was able to create a program through all of that. I brought it back. We rolled it out. All of those team members are still there, which is incredible. But it also opened my eyes to so much more. And it was those moments where I was able to really check in with myself and say, like, am I really in alignment now, to our point earlier, of who I can be now at this stage phase of my career? But I had to take care of me first to be able to step back and even see that. And so over the course of that next year, I did a lot of work on myself. I really focused on like, where were the moments that the joy was most present? What was I doing in those moments? Who was I around? Also, who was causing the opposite, impact on me, and what wasn't lighting me up and what wasn't giving me joy, and like giving myself permission to decide what I wanted to co-sign on in my life and what I didn't. And so I was able to really get clear around that. And through the whole process of, one of the things that I wanted to do very much so in that time was like write the book, right? That's been on my bucket list for like forever. And I felt like after that pause psych experience that I had the framework to be able to really compartmentalize and share stories that would also provide perspective for women that might be feeling the same thing or at different stages of their journey. And so I started to put those 50,000 words on paper after I got my book deal with Wiley. And during that process, and I'm sure you've heard this too, right? Or, it's like when you start to really write like that, it is a very therapeutic experience. And it was like looking in the mirror, right? The whole time I had to be real honest with myself of like, here's what I'm writing about. Is this what I want? Here's what I'm writing about. Here's what I want. And that I realized that chapter 10 of the book that I was, contracted to write was not the chapter I wanted to write, which was basically, I'm still at that company, we've grown, and it kept bugging me. It was like this thing that I would wake up every day going, I don't even want to write that last chapter. This is not the chapter for this book. During
Mhm,
that process, started to look for other opportunities, started to reposition my own company because even there I felt like it had become a little stagnant.
mhm,
And call it God, call it the universe, call it source, whatever you want to attribute it to. There were some really interesting opportunities that were coming into my inbox. One of them was also another healthcare startup that was looking to make a huge dent on the youth suicide situation that we are facing.
mhm.
And for me, I got involved in the behavioral health industry all these years ago because of my own journey. But now I'm a mom of 3 kids. And I thought about how amazing would it be to be able to be part of the solution when it comes to changing the trajectory of young people's lives, especially after everything that they've just been through. And
Mhm.
so I decided to jump in and be a part of that effort and scale that team. And it's the nation's fastest growing startup in the US right now.
Wow.
My team has gone, it's multiplied 5 times since I've been there in 18 months. So that's been exciting. But it was that permission to say, okay, I can walk away, right? Like I could have been so stuck in that old identity because I was so proud of what I had built. And I'm still to this day so proud. I adore the team that's there. I love them. I am so proud of them. And it was time for me to go, right? It was like, it was time for me to move on. It was time for me also to change up what I was doing in my own business and have different offerings and work with different clientele. And it was just time. It was
Mm.
time. So, and it felt so good.
And it's beautiful how you just close the chapter, right? You close the cycle, you honor, like, you honor the person, you honor the role, you honor whatever it is that you created there, and then you surrender to moving on. That's what I'm hearing. You just surrender to that new version, to that new way of serving the world that perhaps we don't see it as humans, but it, like you said, there must be something big that happens in your life for you to realize, okay, I gotta move on from a generous standpoint. And as a leader, we get to really have these moments. And my coaching is all around self-love because of that, because I have realized myself that it's beyond the self-care, the superficial thing of, you can go to the spa, have time with friends. It goes deeper. It goes to what you were saying, to having that moment with yourself of honesty, radical honesty, having the boundaries, who's going to be in my life, who's not going to be in my life, who's no longer aligned, who will contribute. I was just asking myself this question yesterday, like, who gets to go with me from now on and who gets to stay and thank you? And it's hard to be like, but it's my friend, but it's this person, but I feel bad. And how much do we love ourselves to say, okay, this is what's good for me now. This is what supports me now to go to the next step. And I really can relate to all the mental health space. I've had the opportunity, I call it an opportunity of being in a very dark moment last year. And that got me to see so many things that I hadn't seen before. And that, yes, will serve people now because I'm a new version now. I'm embracing this new identity. So thank you for sharing that, because it gives us this sense of relief of like, yes, we get to evolve. Yes, we can pivot. It's not really giving up. It's not really leaving things on the side and, oh, I failed. It's more of like, okay, I'm ready for that next success.
I agree completely. And I love that you talked about relationships too, and who gets to stay and who gets to come along for the ride, because that's also something that can be really hard, especially as you're evolving and your new version of you might not fit the definition of who somebody thinks you should be, but it's not their choice and it's not their position unless you give them that power to
Mhm.
define that. Right. And I think like standing, strong in our stilettos and knowing who we are is a really important thing for us to do as women. And we need to check in with ourselves more frequently. And that's not just like, what am I doing, but who am I around? Who am I being influenced by? Because that is a key indicator as for so many things, right? Like your lifestyle, what you're going to do, the choices you're going to make, where you're going to go, what you're going to do and not do, right? Like all of that. And, I think it's really critically important that we take stock of that and we audit that. So I'm glad you brought that up.
Yes, yes. I've found, and what you're sharing proves what I've been thinking about, is really self-love, this moment of checking in with you, of checking in of what it is that you really want, what version it is that you want to show the world, and kind of like taking a step back. Okay, hold on. I need to take care of myself. And oftentimes we don't do this unless we really reach a point where we are forced to, in a way, like, okay, you got to stop and you got to really take care of yourself. You really got to, and what I'm hearing too is that all your businesses, everything that you have done has been around what has been going on inside, what has been going on in your mind, in your heart, in your soul, in your being, in your essence. And then that permeates everything else. What I'm hearing is success, success, success. You're blowing it out of the water. You're doing all these amazing things. And let's be honest, that is a result of you doing the same thing inside. It's the reflection, right?
Yeah.
The
Thank
reflection.
you. Sometimes, the outward perception might be success. There's lots of failures in all those stories. There's
I'm sure it's the
lessons along
equivalent,
the
right?
way.
Directly proportional to the failures.
Yeah. But I think you look at it too and you say, like, because I've been willing to fail, right,
Uh-huh.
is
Yes.
why I've been successful. And if I hadn't been bold enough to say yes at different times in my career to opportunities that were crazy, right? Like, I mean, we can just even rewind. Like when I was 18, who would have thought? Like, start a nonprofit, run it for 18 years, merge it into the nation's largest not-for-profit for eating disorders. Didn't think about that part of it when I started it. I just thought I wanted to help somebody, right? So that was cool.
Yeah.
The whole, like, I'm not going to take the bar exam. I'm going to finish law school, but I'm not going to be an attorney. But I'm going to lean into these businesses because this is what brings me joy. It was bumpy in the beginning, right? And like when I got involved with the first startup, I knew nothing beyond what I had taught myself, right? Like I didn't go to school for professional selling. I hadn't stood up a business development organization or sales organization. All I knew is that what I cared about and I could sell it myself. And I could eventually figure out how to train and get everybody else to do it too. And we became an incredible company, right? But if I had held myself back and said, I don't know how to do this, right? I'm not fully qualified, so I'm not going to go after it. Like I wouldn't be sitting here. And it's also being honest enough and vulnerable enough to say, like, here's my gap. Like, here's what I have to fill from a learning perspective. But I'm going to work my buns off to make sure that I am doing everything I can to surround myself with the right people, get myself in the right rooms, get myself with the right network, do the work, right? Like no one will outwork me in that regard. Like when I know what I need to do to be able to get to that next level, laser focused. And so that has served me. But like I said, I didn't have professional training in how to do this. I didn't go to business school. I have a degree in public relations. Like, like that was what I went
about. Yeah.
so but it was being okay with saying, I'm not going to do it perfect this time. And that was a huge growth thing for me because, a lot of my eating disorder was rooted in perfectionism. And a lot of what I've struggled with over the course of my life is feeling not enough, but it's also being brave enough to say, but today I'm going to take one step forward and I'm going to look fear in the face. And guess what? I'm either going to win, which I love, or I'm going to learn. And then I'm not going to do this thing wrong twice. So then I'm going to get better. And every time I do that, I'm building my confidence and I'm building my stamina and I'm building my resilience. And most important, I'm building the trust that I have in myself to know I'm not going to let me down. Right. So it's like all of it. I think the failures don't feel as bad when you play full out and you've done everything you can. I think the failures really sting when deep down in your soul you say, I didn't give it my all. That's when it hurts the most, right? Like I think I think of course there's times that it hurts and it comes out of nowhere. And there's of course there's always those outliers, but the vast majority of the things that we experience in life, I think the guilt associated with not going all in is what holds us back from trying again. And so that's where I just, everything that I do, everything I do with my team, everything I do with my own companies, and everything else that I get involved in and consult on, it's like, please play full out. Like, please go for it.
Go
Please
for it.
define what it is that feels like success for you, and focus and do it. And you're going to learn a lot. And guess what? Those learnings could potentially be another business in the future that you can teach somebody else how to do. So like, it's always, you're always in the best position to help the person you want once, in the shoes of. And so it's like, let's go, let's do it. So it's really just learning from it and the mindset around it.
I had never seen failure in this like way of how you just, put it on the table, like what type of failure it is and why it really feels bad, or why it feels like, okay, let's go, let's keep on, trying something new. And many times women stop because I'm not qualified, I'm not a business person, I don't know how to sell, I don't know how to do this, I'm not creative, I'm not. And we focus on what I'm not, rather than what I could be, what I could become, and who I can attract into my team or my surroundings that can teach me and take me there. So the through line I see here is passion is, I'm just going to help one person. If I can help one person, if I can help 3 people, if I can help, and of course that becomes millions and millions, because if you impact, I believe this, if you impact just one person, that is enough, because then the ripple that's created from that. So passion, just being so driven with, by your vision, and that's what a leader does, and checking in, course correcting. And I loved what you said. Maybe a new business can come out of that. Whoops, I didn't know this could happen. So, yes.
Well, and I love what you said too. I just want to like double click into the not feeling like you're ready enough. So, I mean, in the seat that I'm in right now, I hired 100 people last year on my team, 100 people total I hired. And I interviewed, multiples of that, obviously, to get to 100. And there's like these common themes, right? And like, you can tell when somebody is passionate and is willing to try, right? And is willing to give it their all. You can also feel it when somebody has the self-doubt and they have a narrative and they're almost talking themselves out of the opportunity as you go. It's very interesting to see how people show up when they're chasing that next opportunity for themselves. And fascinating to see the difference between men and women too, and how they present themselves. Right. And so I just encourage every woman to really create that win list before you walk into any opportunity, whether it's for yourself, whether it's for a job, whether it's to get a new client or a new account, if it's your own business, and make sure you know all of the greatness that you're bringing into the room before you get in there, so that it's on the tip of your tongue and you can share it with grace and poise, but don't leave it out. And that's, I think, one of the things that, I have the chance to mentor a lot of young women too. And I have for years and years and years, and I love it. But there's a common thread in what I share with them. And it's like, don't be afraid to be amazing and shine that light bright. Because if you don't turn that light on full beam, people don't know how incredible you are. And the amount of opportunities that are like a ripple effect as a result of you being able to share humbly, but share what you've done. It earns you respect. It earns you seats at tables. It opens doors that you will walk through for the rest of your life. And you deserve that because you're amazing. And so like, that is like, I am just like pumping that message. I'm like, if I can influence that next generation to like show up, shine bright, and achieve abundant success, like we are winning. So like, that is like my mission. But
Love it. I love it. And when you go on your Instagram, it's written all over, like that's
everywhere.
It's everywhere. It's every day. It's like, pumping in that. And I love it. Like every time, like if I scroll and I see, I'm like, yes, yes, yes. I'm like, there's this momentum that's built, and this I'm giving you right now, like it is this momentum that's built from what you post one after the other. It's that reminder. Then if we read it, and we have read it a million times, but there's always this moment. And as we wrap up, tell us about this one miracle moment, this one thing. Perhaps it was a quote, it was a mentor, it was a situation. That's why this is called the miracle hour, because transformation, I believe, happens in 1 minute at a time. And it could be just
Mhm.
one thing, one click. What was it for you that you can call it a
Yeah.
miracle and that has allowed you to create what you have created?
Yeah, so I've got a lot of them. I mean, I mentioned one of them with, the guest that I had on my show sharing about Nick and opening my eyes in life to the world of pause psych. I mean, I'm forever changed as a human as a result of exploring that. But it really all started by a mentor telling me when I was 17 years old, after I had gone through treatment and I was, on the other side in the early stages of recovery. And she looked at me and she said, Allison, you were blessed with a voice to tell your story, and you have a responsibility to go do so. And that was it. And I will tell you, we had a book launch party here. It's actually, I tell the whole story in chapter 1 if she believes she could. But she walked up to my front door and I just cried and I just hugged her and I just cried and hugged her. Because to your point, like that moment changed my life. That piece of advice stuck with me for so long. And she was the person that in those early days when I knew I wanted to change people's lives, I knew I wanted to share my story and I did not want, this to go in vain. Everything I had gone through, I did not want people to suffer in silence like I had. And I knew if I used my voice, it would change at least somebody's life. And Lisa, her name is Lisa Maley, she stood there and practiced with me over and over and over again until I could confidently share that story of my journey in high school and everything that I had gone through, which was the catapult, right? It was the catalyst for the change that I then went through and everything that I have done for the rest of my life. I mean, you figure if I hadn't done that and I hadn't gone and done the work and I hadn't started the nonprofit and I hadn't leaned into these other opportunities, I wouldn't have been Miss Florida. I wouldn't have had the businesses I've had. I wouldn't have had the opportunity to scale these incredible healthcare companies that are saving thousands of lives every year. Like I wouldn't have had that. And so like I want everybody that's listening to really appreciate the ripple effect and the impact that you can have on somebody's life when you see something special in them and to make sure you're holding up the mirror for them when they don't see it themselves.
Yes. Oh, I love it. Love, love, love it. Thank you, Allison. Thank you so much. This has been amazing. I am so grateful for this time with you. And as always, I admire you. I admire what you do. And thank you for showing women what's possible. Thank you for showing, the world that, like you said, it's not in vain. Whatever it is that you're going through will serve someone if you're brave enough to share it, to stand for it, and to love yourself so much that you say, whatever it takes, I'm going to do it because this is bigger than what I can see and expect. So thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
sharing all the details so people can follow you, buy your book, and just be receiving all of what you share because it is beautiful. So thank you so much. Thank you for your time.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It was an absolute honor and pleasure.
All right. Until next one, then, thank you and love you all. Bye.